1991, Chandler, Arizona at 7:15 a.m. On November 4th, a red 1989 Pontiac Lehman's slowed near the intersection of McQueen Road and Chandler Boulevard. A co-worker stepped out. The door closed. The car pulled away. That was the last confirmed moment of Lisa Diane Jameson's life. She was 23 years old. She was married. She was the mother of a 2-year-old boy. She was believed to be pregnant, and by the next sunrise, she was already missing. The details at first appeared ordinary: an overnight shift at Monte Electronics, a short drive home, a quiet suburban house in Gilbert that never heard her key in the door. No struggle, no goodbye note, no money withdrawn, her clothes, jewelry, personal belongings untouched where she had left them. But something in the timeline never settled. Weeks later, her car would surface in a parking lot in Phoenix, abandoned beside an adult bookstore. Doors locked, nothing inside to explain how or why it had been left there. No evidence, no witness, only the shape of a life that stopped moving. If you remain with this story until its end, you will begin to understand why some disappearances do not fade. They collect silence, and if this is the kind of story you believe should continue to be told, you are already part of keeping it alive, quietly, simply, by choosing to stay. The official record begins cleanly. Monday, November 4th, 1991. Lisa Diane Jameson clocks out of her midnight shift at Monte Electronics in Chandler just after dawn. She is wearing a pink shirt, blue jeans, white shoes, a silver rope necklace, and a silver herringbone chain. Her brown hair is pulled back. She looks tired but functional. A co-worker needs a ride. She agrees. At approximately 7:15 a.m. near McQueen Road and Chandler Boulevard, the co-worker exits the vehicle. They later state that nothing seemed wrong. No argument, no hesitation, no distress. Lisa drives away alone. By mid-morning, she has not returned to the home she shares in Gilbert with her husband, Alan Jameson, and her 2-year-old son, Kyle. Alan is not Kyle's biological father. By evening, concern has hardened into alarm. By the following day, a missing persons report is filed with the Gilbert Police Department. Initial assumptions are cautious. Adults sometimes leave, relationships fracture, new beginnings happen without warning, but this case resists that pattern from the first hour. Investigators enter the home. Lisa's clothing remains in the closet. Her purse sits where it always sits. Her identification, her bank cards, her paycheck. No withdrawals, no packed bags, no preparations. The kitchen is unfinished, as though the morning stopped mid. Her son's toys remain scattered on the living room floor. Family members begin searching immediately. They do not wait for formal authorization. They walk drainage ditches. They enter nightclubs and restaurants Lisa used to frequent. They knock on doors. They leave notes on bulletin boards. They drive the same roads over and over, looking for the red Pontiac that should be somewhere between Chandler and Gilbert but is not. Lisa's mother, Barbara, comes forward with a detail that shifts the gravity of the case. In the days before her disappearance, Lisa told her she was pregnant. She also said she was afraid to tell her husband. That statement, it becomes an unspoken fault line running beneath every conversation that follows. Gilbert police begin canvassing the route between the drop-off point and Lisa's home. There are no accidents reported, no abandoned vehicle, no hospital admission, no body found. The absence grows wider each day. Weeks pass. On December 3rd, 1991, nearly 1 month after Lisa vanishes, her red 1989 Pontiac Lehman's is located in Phoenix. It is parked in a lot of an adult bookstore near the 4000 block of East Washington Street. The vehicle shows no visible signs of damage, no forced entry, no blood, no personal items left behind that point to a struggle. The interior is empty of meaning. Detectives examine the car. Fingerprints are inconclusive. No physical evidence emerges that advances the case. The car is impounded. The trail, which never truly formed, grows cold again during this period. Alan Jameson is questioned. As Lisa's husband, he becomes a natural focus of early investigative interest. He is cooperative. He denies any involvement. Nothing concrete surfaces. No arrest is made. He is eventually released from formal scrutiny. Then, not long after Lisa's disappearance, Alan makes a decision that the family will never fully understand. He leaves Kyle in the custody of Lisa's relatives. He resigns from his job as a corrections officer with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and he moves to Bolivia. That there is no public explanation. Years later, Lisa's son will say that he never had a relationship with the man who raised him during his earliest years. He will also say he believes foul play was involved, and that he believes he knows who is responsible. The police, however, will never publicly confirm that conclusion. By the end of 1991, the investigation is already drifting. The public attention fades, leads slow, and the absence where Lisa Jameson should be becomes permanent. If you are following these details carefully, you may already feel the weight of what is missing, and if something in this case unsettles you, leave your thoughts quietly below. Sometimes, collective memory is the only force that keeps a story from disappearing completely. The second month after Lisa Jameson vanished unfolded without the normal shape of an investigation. There were no credible sightings, no calls that held, no pattern of movement beyond the final morning in Chandler and the silent vehicle in Phoenix. But inside the case file, small irregularities began to accumulate, details that did not resolve, only lingered. One detective noted the timing of the car's placement. The Pontiac was discovered December 3, 1991. But no witness from the surrounding businesses could say when it had arrived. The adult bookstore operated long hours. The parking lot was not heavily monitored. The vehicle could have been sitting there for days or weeks. The dust patterns on the windshield suggested extended exposure, but no exact estimate could be fixed. Another officer documented the unusual condition of the interior. The driver's seat was pushed farther back than Lisa's height would normally require. The mirrors were slightly misaligned. These were not proofs, only impressions, but impressions are what investigations live on when evidence refuses to surface. Phone records were reviewed. Lisa had not placed or received any unusual calls before her shift. No message had been left behind. No signal of preparation. At the Jameson residence, detectives logged every item she had not taken. Her winter clothing, her son's photographs, her jewelry box, even small personal items remained in their places. The pattern was not of departure. It was of interruption. The co-worker she dropped off was re-interviewed. The time was confirmed. 7:15 a.m. Traffic that morning had been light. The co-worker watched the car pull away and merge into the road. Nothing else. What unsettled investigators most was not what was found, but what never appeared. There was no financial activity after November 4th. No attempt to access money. No new identity emerging elsewhere. No confirmed movement across state lines. When family members retraced Lisa's likely route, they discovered something minor but persistent. At several points along the drive between Chandler and Gilbert, road maintenance logs showed temporary lane closures that morning. Short delays. Incomplete records. Nothing dramatic yet. The drive that should have taken minutes had become fragmented by small unknowns. One report mentions a patrol unit responding to an unrelated incident near East Washington Street on an unspecified morning in late November. The officer remembered a red compact sedan in the lot of the adult bookstore but could not confirm the date. The memory was uncertain, but it placed the vehicle there earlier than December 3rd. Another note referenced an anonymous call received by Gilbert police weeks after the disappearance. The caller said only, "You're looking in the wrong direction." The call could not be traced. It was filed. It went nowhere. As the months passed, the family continued searching alone. Lisa's sister, Trevor Frickenbrough, and her niece, Bashbet Free, walked neighborhoods. They pinned flyers. They spoke to strangers. They held on to one certainty. Lisa would never leave her son. Kyle Collins grew up inside that absence. He would later describe the memories arriving in waves, the sound of his mother's laughter, the way she filled a room. He would also say that his childhood was shaped by a quiet shame, by the weight of not knowing what had happened when everyone else's lives seemed to move forward. Inside the case file, the strangest detail remained the simplest. A pregnant young mother vanished without preparation, without resources, without a single verified step beyond a quiet street corner at 7:15 in the morning. Nothing in the record explains how she moved from Chandler to Phoenix. Nothing explains why the car was left where it was. Nothing explains why she never used the life she left behind. And the file continues to list her status with the same words: unchanged for decades, endangered, missing. If this account has drawn you deeper into the stillness of this case, let your presence be counted quietly by marking it now. Lisa Diane Jameson was born September 26, 1968. She was 23 years old when the world closed around her absence. To her family, she was not a case number or a missing poster. She was described as a woman filled with joy. Her sister said that even decades later, there remained a space in the family that never healed. Her niece, only 15 at the time, remembered her as a best friend, someone who listened, someone who laughed easily, someone who carried warmth into rooms that otherwise stayed quiet. Lisa became a mother at a young age. By the time her son Kyle was 2, her days were shaped around his routines, feeding schedules, bedtime songs, small shared rituals that formed the architecture of early childhood. Those who knew her spoke with certainty. She would never leave him, not for any reason. On the night before her disappearance, Lisa had dinner with her family. During that meal, she told her grandmother that she was pregnant again. The news did not bring celebration. It brought fear. She said she was afraid to tell her husband, Alan. The fear remained unspoken in the days that followed. It did not leave a written trace. It existed only in memory, carried forward by those who loved her after she was gone. When Lisa failed to come home that Monday morning, Kyle waited. Then he slept. Then he waited again. The house remained full of her belongings but empty of her presence. Family members searched while he was too young to understand what the word missing truly meant. By the time he was old enough, it had already become the defining fact of his life. Years later, Kyle would describe growing up without answers as a slow erosion. He struggled with identity, with depression, with the feeling of being unfinished. He would build a career in music, recording artist, songwriter, producer, and pour into that work the grief he could not resolve elsewhere. As an adult, he would speak publicly about the case. He would say he believed foul play was involved. He would say he believed he knew who was responsible. He would also say that justice mattered more to him than details. He wanted the person who destroyed his family to be held accountable. Through all the interviews, one statement never changed. His mother would not leave him, not willingly, not silently, not without a single trace of preparation. The file contains her physical description: 5'6", 122 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes, 4 piercings in each ear, the clothing she wore that morning, the jewelry around her neck, the medical note, pregnant at the time of disappearance. But those facts are only the outer shell. Inside them is the life that stopped moving on a clear Arizona morning and never returned. And in every year since, the people who loved her have carried that stillness forward. By the time 3 decades had passed, the case of Lisa Jameson existed in layers of documentation that did not fully agree with one another. Gilbert police maintained that no evidence had ever been recovered from the Pontiac. Lehman's family members, however, remembered investigators mentioning items of interest that were never clearly defined. Early media reports described the vehicle as yielding nothing. Later summaries simply stated the same conclusion without reference to what had been examined. What changed over time was not the evidence, it was the language around it. In 2021, as the 30th anniversary of her disappearance approached, the Gilbert Police Department confirmed that the case remained open and active. They stated that resources from other agencies, both in-state and out of state, had been used over the years. No persons of interest were publicly identified. The case classification remained endangered missing. Yet several internal inconsistencies persisted. One archived dispatch log referenced an attempted plate check in Phoenix several days before, December 3rd, attached to a vehicle description that matched Lisa's Pontiac. The notation was incomplete. The outcome field was blank. The log number was not cross-referenced anywhere else in the file. Another report referenced a secondary interview with Alan Jameson that did not appear in the main investigative summary. The date was missing. The content was summarized in 2 sentences. Subject reiterated prior statements. No further action taken. After Lisa's disappearance, Alan left the country. He moved to Bolivia. He started a new family. He eventually returned to the United States and now resides in Kansas. No official explanation for the departure or its timing has ever been entered into the case file. Meanwhile, the location where Lisa's car was found remained curiously static. The adult bookstore at East Washington Street continued operating for years. No witness ever emerged to explain why a young woman's car would be abandoned there, or when it truly arrived. One retired investigator, speaking informally, noted that the lot sat close to several highway access points. A car could be left there and vanish into traffic within minutes. It was, in his words, a clean place to lose something. In 2021, renewed media attention prompted fresh public appeals. Lisa's niece described the search as chaotic, endless, unfinished. Her sister spoke of the hole in their family that never closed. Kyle, now a father himself, said his daughter reminded him of his mother. He said he spoke to Lisa every day. Despite the renewed attention, no new leads surfaced. The contradictions remained unresolved. The timeline still contained gaps that no record could close. The final entry in the file reads, much like the first, no confirmed sightings, no physical evidence, no verified explanation, only a life interrupted, a family suspended in waiting, and a case that never learned how to end. If there is anything in this record that refuses to settle in your mind, you are not alone in that feeling. 3 decades after the morning Lisa Jameson drove away from McQueen Road, the desert still holds its silence. Her son is now older than she ever was. He carries fragments of her voice in memory, reconstructed from stories, photographs, and the weight of what never returned. He says he is not concerned with the small details anymore, only that someone, somewhere, is living as if November 4th, 1991 never happened. The file remains open. The language remains careful. Endangered, missing. Nothing more conclusive has ever been written. Sometimes, families of the missing describe an absence that does not behave like ordinary grief. It does not close. It does not settle. It lingers, suspended, like a question that has lost its words. And in that space, imagination quietly fills what evidence never could. If this story stays with you after the screen goes dark, allow it to stay. Stories like Lisa's do not survive on paperwork alone. They survive when someone chooses not to forget. And if you wish to keep following the quiet places where unresolved cases continue to exist, you already know how to remain here with them. The parking lot on East Washington still stands. The road through Chandler still carries morning traffic. And somewhere between them, a life stopped without explanation. Some disappearances do not end. They simply wait.